Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, September 23rd, Lebanon City Council meeting. Our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, move on to the roll call members. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Kincaid.
Present.
Keith Campbell.
Here.
Sandra Jasonowski.
Present.
Dick Robertson.
Here.
John Copeland.
Here.
Sierra Messenger.
Present.
And Rob Hawkins.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll have our minutes at our next meeting. So first item up tonight is a swearing in of some new, one new firefighter as well as a promotion tonight. So Chief Batts, please.
I want to start by thanking everyone for coming to our swearing in. We don't normally have this big of a crowd, so thank you for your support in advance. Mayor, who would you like to start with? Lieutenant Yancey. So I'll invite Lieutenant Yancey up front. Sean came to us as a lateral transfer firefighter, and he's done an amazing job for our department. He's dedicated not only to the city of Lebanon, but to Lebanon Fire. His firemanship is second to none, and we are excited what this next chapter of his career will bring.
And repeat after me.
I, Sean Yancey,
Solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I'll support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution, laws and ordinances
and all laws and ordinances
of the city of
of
Lebanon,
the city of Lebanon,
all true orders
and follow all true orders
of the officers appointed over me,
of the officers appointed over me,
and I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as Lieutenant of the Lebanon Fire Department.
as lieutenant
That's my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
I have so many people I want to thank, but first off, I would like to thank my mom, my wife, my 3 boys for always being there and supporting me through all my trainings and classes and my growth. I thank you just doesn't go enough for what you guys do for me. I'd also like to thank the City Council, Mayor Gentry, for giving me the opportunity to serve the city of Lebanon. Next, I would like to thank Battalion Chief Jason Lee, Captain Adams, Lieutenant Rinker, Lieutenant Doherty for always being there when I needed and giving me advice along the way. Lastly, I would like to thank our administration chiefs, Chief Hendricks, Chief Young, and Chief Batts. You have all helped me in one way or another in my journey, and I can't thank you guys enough. Chief Batts, we have been through a lot of life's hard knocks together, and all around the same time, you have given me words of encouragement and advice that will stick with me forever. I'm truly honored and grateful to be a member of this department. I appreciate all the support and advice you all have given me. I'm looking forward to the future and continuing my growth and serving the citizens of the city of Lebanon. Thank you.
Very well said. Next, I would like to introduce firefighter Blake Gaylor. Blake is a lateral transfer firefighter for the city of Lebanon. And last week, he had his week-long skills assessment that we affectionately call Hell Week. And this young man did an outstanding job. Just so impressed with his grit, with his mettle. There was no giving up in Blake last week. And I know that I was tired at the end of that week. We met with all of the assessors, the ride-out officers, the company officers, all the instructors. They were so happy with his performance. We are completely comfortable with putting Blake on shift this week, and he will report tomorrow morning.
Blake, raise your right hand there. Here, repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Blake Gaylor,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I'll support the Constitution of the United
and
States
the Constitution of the State of Indiana
and the Constitution of the State of
and
Indiana
all laws and ordinances
and all laws and ordinances
of the City of Lebanon,
of the City of Lebanon,
and follow all true orders
and follow all true orders
of the officers appointed over me.
of the officers appointed over me.
And I will faithfully
And I will faithfully
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as a member of the Lebanon Fire Department
as a member of the Lebanon Fire
to the
Department
best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Blake doesn't know this, but now he's going to lead us in a rendition of the national anthem. No, just speaking.
I just like to say thank you. Thank you all for the opportunity. I'm thankful for the Lebanon Fire Department giving me an opportunity. Just say thankful for all my friends and family that came to support me. I'm super grateful. And all glory be to God. I'm just grateful for the opportunity, and I hope that I can make everybody proud. Thank you.
Yeah, so we will stand in a brief recess to let, if anyone doesn't want to stay for the rest of the meeting, we do have some interesting things on, so feel free to stay. But if not, we're standing in a brief recess to the fall again.
So we're going to take the swearing in group and go downstairs.
All right, we'll re-adjourn the city council meeting. It is this time of year where we get our comprehensive financial overview from our friends at Baker Tilly. So we have Brian Colton here tonight to kind of, I told him to 10, 15 minutes to kind of give us an update of where we are from a city's comprehensive financial plan. So go ahead, Brian, take it away.
All right, thank you. Should have the present. There it is. All right, technology is working for me tonight, so that's a positive. As the mayor has said, we usually come and talk about the city's finances each year, a couple of different times. This year, we also went through and did a comprehensive financial plan, which is the first time, I think, in 5 or 6 years that we've done that. What's good about that is that really kind of takes a deeper dive into your different funds, looks at where they've been, looks at where you're at currently, and then it projects out the next 3 or 4 years of where things are headed. And so we're just going to give you high level. I'll hit some high points as we go through. After the meeting, we do have a 70-page report that we will ship out so everybody can have that. But tonight it's a smaller kind of PowerPoint, just as I said, some high points to where you're at. The good news is the city's in excellent financial shape. We go and do these conversations a lot of different places, the comprehensive financial plans a lot of different places. A lot of those times there's a scenario where revenues are going down, costs are going up, you're having trouble with fund balances and things like that. That's not our situation in Lebanon, so it's kind of fun to come here to talk about good things and good news. So as we go through, broken this out into some different categories. So there's the operating funds, special revenue funds, capital projects funds, TIP funds, and the debt service funds. We'll highlight under the operating funds, the general fund in a little bit more detail, as well as the lit public safety fund. And on the special revenue funds, we'll look at a little bit more detail on the food and beverage fund as well as we go through this presentation. So that's kind of high level, what's in the different categories. In this, this slide shows you what are the different revenues that goes into those funds. It's not just property taxes. I think a lot of times people think it's property taxes and income taxes. There's a whole host of funds. You have about a dozen different funds that go into your operating funds, different types of revenues and fees. Special revenue funds are pretty consistent. I'm not going to touch on all of these. When we hit some of the different slides in detail, we'll reference some of the numbers. So this is just a slide that shows you where have you been as far as your tax rate and your assessed valuation. As what we like to see is assessed value going up, because what that does is that either helps you keep your tax rate constant or maybe even reduce your tax rate while providing the same level of services and raising the same amount of money. As you can see, there's been excellent assessed valuation growth over the last 5 years. Excellent from the perspective of helping to fund your budgets. I know sometimes people don't like to have their own assessed values go up, but that's just, that's just showing kind of where the market is. At the same time, the city's been able to keep their tax rate constant and in fact has reduced it slightly over that time period. So those are excellent facts to have in place, is that you're still providing the services and you've actually been able to have a slight tax reduction. This shows where you were really in 22 to 23. And we're not going to go through all the numbers on this schedule, but what it shows is cash reserves. We like to see those numbers in the 15%, 50% range. There's different levels that we look at. Some of that has to do with bond rating. Some of it has to do with how do you fund your budgets. You can see that the city is in excellent shape in all those different categories. The debt service funds is statutorily limited on how high those can be. That's why that's the lowest number that is up there. There's a limitation on how high that can even be. We've been seeing in that time period from 22 to 23, the operating funds, special revenue funds did have an increase in their balances at the end of the year. Capital projects funds went down slightly. That's not surprising. Capital projects funds, a lot of times you build up cash, you have your special project, you pay it off. That's not a surprise at all to see that one going down like that. And I will highlight on the capital projects fund, when you look at the right-hand side, we show the receipts, so that's the revenue side, and we show the disbursements, and that's where you see that big kind of fluctuation. So revenues are a little bit less, expenditures went up quite a bit. Well, that's because you had a project that the city did. So that's not a concern. Sometimes people would see that and they would be like, oh my God, nothing to be concerned about there. TIF has been pretty constant, and then the debt service is as well. Okay. That doesn't want to go. Okay. So for 2024, this is where things are estimated to end up. Obviously, we still have 3 months of the year to go, but based upon where we think things are going to end up, you can see on the far right your cash reserves. Same story as the previous schedule. Those are all in excellent financial position. And the areas where you see that your net cash flows is down, those are places that you've had projects and expended. Like, for example, the TIF area, you've had some major expenditures out of there that were planned. And so that's why that would be showing up as red. Now moving ahead to 2025 to 2028. So this is the period of time that we're looking at kind of projecting out. So 25, this really ties in with where you're at with your budget process. 26, 27, and 28 are estimates building upon where you're currently at and building upon your 25 budget estimates as well. Same story. So cash reserves are in a good position as we're projecting it out. And we'll get into more detail on a few of the funds here in just a second that will explain where some of this is at. As far as like the cash balance trending down for the operating funds, part of that is based upon how we do the process with this report, in that we have built in some revenue increases, but we've also built in some pretty substantial increases in expenditures as well. The expenditures are growing at a higher rate than the revenues in our estimate here. Just to be on the conservative side on really the revenue side, and then conservatively spending more on the expenditure side. So that's why some of this, when you look at this going forward, some of this is just kind of the way the math works out. When we get there in reality, if we come back and look at this in 26, 27, my guess is we will see that your ending cash balance did not actually go down in some of those funds. One piece that we did include in this that does also impact that prior schedule and some of the ones that we'll be talking about here in a second, did look at some of the capital improvements that are anticipated over the next few years. So in 2025, there's about $4.5 million of capital projects that are built into the plan, about $3 million in 26, $1 million in 27. And then there's a couple large expenditures on the horizon with the new fire station and new police headquarters. Those numbers are estimates. Those numbers are not final numbers at all. It's a placeholder. So those numbers, obviously, when you get closer to that point in time, those would be trued up to reality. A couple that we'll hit on specifically. So Witt Road is getting paid out of the CCD fund. That's a pretty big expenditure out in 2026. You'll see that when we get to the graph for the CCD fund on their expenditures there. Also, we don't have graphs for the MVH and LRS, but you can see some pretty major resurfacing programs over the next few years. So those revenues really kind of get washed out. Money comes in, money goes back out. So those balances we don't see growing over time either. And then a number of projects that are getting paid out of the food and beverage fund. The park trail and lighting coming out of there, as well as the pickleball courts. And then some expenditures out of lit public safety in 2025. Realistically, as we get into 26, 27, 28, you're going to have additional capital expenditures that are going to get paid out of those funds. So you'll see the revenues in some of those funds going up because we didn't build in those increases on the expenditure side. So this is just kind of where we're at right now, what we know. Obviously, every year you take a look at it and you change things. So now for the final few slides, we will touch on a couple of those funds that I mentioned. So the general fund, you can see, that's kind of what I alluded to, where we're at about $10 million ending this year in there. By 2028, we're at about 7.9 million. That really has to do with, we put in a 5% increase for personal services to be on the conservative side with that. Other costs were estimated at 4% growth. But offsetting that, we're not getting that revenue offset like in the maximum levy. That's about a 4% estimate over that time period. And since personal services is a large chunk of your general fund budget, you can see if that's at 5%, revenue's coming in at 4% or less growth, you're automatically building in kind of a reduction in that fund balance. We also did build in increases for public safety lit and the certified shares of about 3% and 3.5%. Just originally when we looked at this, we didn't build in income tax growth. In some places we don't. We felt comfortable in Boone County and with Lebanon to go ahead and build in an increase with that, just looking kind of at your historical growth factors. And that's where we came up with our 3.5% increase. So, this goes down. That's not a concern. You still have very high percentages as far as your fund balance. Lit public safety, you can see on this schedule, it's about flatline for 2025 because we have that few capital outlays in there for 2025. And then 26, 27, 28, it's growing because we didn't put anything in for capital cost in those years. Obviously, this can be impacted by those. So there is a room here in the public safety fund to add additional capital outlays and costs. So you're in position for that. The food and beverage fund, you can see in 2025, if you think back to that schedule that we had with the park improvements and the pickleball courts, that's why it goes from about $1.7 million in 2024 down to about $500,000 in 2025. That's what you expect to see. You save your money up, you pay for a project, and then it starts to build back up. And we didn't really build in any increases in that fund either, kind of flatline that. So that could also be increasing as you bring in additional businesses, more food and beverage getting spent or collected here in Lebanon. The CCD fund, classic situation for a capital fund, builds it up, spends it on a project. So that's the hit in 2026 is the Witt Road project. And then it starts to build back up after that as well for 27 and 28. So based upon the assessed valuation estimates that we put in place, the growth of the maximum fund levy and the other funds, taking 2024 to 25, we're aiming to keep the tax rate about the same from 24 to 25. And then with about, really it's pretty minimal assessed valuation growth. It's about 4% from 26, 27, and 28 annually, compared to about 15% from 24 to 25. So we're pretty conservative on that side. That would allow the tax rate to go down about 10 cents. That also builds in, you have bonds that roll off as well. So this would allow the city, if the assessed valuation portion of it stays as we're estimating, you could do another kind of general obligation bond where you kind of fill that in to do capital projects, things like that, without a tax rate increase, still staying within your current tax rate. So this provides, some capacity for the city as we go towards the future for projects as well. Challenges. So we struggled a little bit coming up with challenges, which is a good thing. But you do have some, significant capital projects down the road that we talked about, that we kind of referenced that are a few years out, just thinking about how those are going to be paid, what are the potential sources for those, and looking at that really, as we get closer to that point in time. And then as I kind of alluded to, managing that declining tax rate. And we do see that utilization of that kind of 1 year, 2 year, 3 year general obligation bond for capital projects as a means to help manage that tax rate, because you don't really want to have fluctuations in tax rates. So if it goes down 10 cents and then later on down the road, hey, we've got to do a bond issue, payable out of property tax, it jumps back up 10 cents. That's not good, just, from a planning purpose and process. So that's just something also to think about. If those assessed valuations do grow as we're estimating, or even more significantly, how does that get maintained? You also have your TIF areas that rely upon that tax rate as well. So the other side of that is if the tax rate goes down too much, then your TIF revenues also get hit on that side. So there's kind of a balancing act. They're all intertwined together. Other places, as I mentioned, we would have a longer list of challenges. So I would consider this to be a good story. In conclusion, this just is kind of a roadmap. It's a living, breathing document. We really look to update these every couple of years. Some places we do an update every year on certain funds. Some places we do it every 5 years. It's really kind of depends on how the community is growing. With some of the things you have going on right at your border, some of the large inside your borders actually now. Probably looking at this sooner than 5 years is going to be what we're going to want to do as we go forward, because a lot of stuff is going to be happening in Lebanon in the next 2 to 3 years, and we just need to kind of keep on top of it. You guys do a good job as far as your budgets go. It's a good process, so that works out well. And I think just continuing kind of your active planning, thinking years out. Some places are reactionary. You guys are very proactive and looking out years in advance of when things are going to hit. I would just keep that up as you're going through the process. All right, I think I did my 10 to 15 minutes.
Perfect. Okay. Any,
So any questions or anything? And like I said, you're going to get a more detailed report that we'll send out to you that if you can't sleep or if you really want to get into the numbers, it'll be a good resource for you. And then we can obviously update that as needed and we can answer questions if you have them.
any questions for Brian from council?
No, sir.
I guess generally speaking, so we saw, we had about 75% cash reserves in our general fund. What do you typically see other municipalities, counties?
I mean, we see some places, we want to see about 50%, 40%, 50% rated from a rating perspective. It was very positive. You get a really good bonus for that. A lot of them are in the 15 to 30% range.
We're pretty unique being that high from a reserve standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, there's some places, but yeah, outside of kind of the donut counties, we very rarely see that. And even in the donut counties, you're very unique in that regard.
Any other questions for Brian? No, sir. Okay. Appreciate all the hard work. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right. All right, we'll move on to old business now. First item up is ordinance 2024-14. I guess, and also 2015 as well. They're kind of related concerning the water and wastewater regulated territories. Jeff Jacob.
Good evening, Council. Again, my name is Jeff Jacob. I'm an attorney with Hackman Hewlett. I'm the attorney for Lebanon Utilities. I'm also here with the Utility General Manager, Ed Basquil, and the Wastewater Operations Manager, Ryan Ottinger. As the mayor indicated, we have two mirrored ordinances. I'd like to speak to those just briefly and address them together. However, would request a vote if you choose to do so this evening separately. We discussed these two ordinances in detail last month, and what I want to start is just with a reminder of what this is not. I think is as good a place as any to start. This is not an annexation. This is not a mandate for anyone to connect to to water or wastewater utilities, and this is not an absolute plan. We anticipate that this will grow and change and evolve with the city. As you are aware, we have a significant period of growth and change and development within the community. But what this is it's putting a stake in the ground for the utility and the city to plan in conjunction with its comprehensive plan on where it sees itself growing into the future and gives the utility direction on how to plan its infrastructure into the future. Last time I was here, there were a few changes that I was asked to make, and again, asked to extend the boundary on the proposed territory. As a reminder, we move, and this is water. We have almost an identical map for wastewater, but the western boundary is State Road 75. To the east, County Road 600 east. To the south, County Road 300 south. These are generally speaking. And to the north, what we were asked to do was to move from, I believe, 650 up to State Road 47, which we have done. Additionally, the change since you were last here was a modification, either an error or a typo, I believe the Councilperson Jasanowski pointed out. The page 2 of the wastewater ordinance did not read as I was describing, and we changed that from a 10-mile to 4-mile extension, despite the fact that the wastewater ordinance allows for expansion to 10 miles. So being second reading and having discussed this in detail, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I believe that revision to the map and to page 2, thank you for that, were the additions that I was asked to make.
Any questions for Jeff at this time?
I only got one question. I was kind of shocked to see the change to up north of 47, north of 47. I mean, I remember asking why you didn't go to 47. But I said, I remember from the last meeting asking why you didn't go to 47 the first time.
Yeah, there
So
was
I
some.
wasn't expecting that, I guess.
Okay, well, we took your comment in talking to the mayor and Mr. Basquill. We believe that that actually mirrors the comprehensive plan better. And so we were able to accommodate that change. And we actually took that as a request from the last meeting.
From my understanding, that was your kind of, you recommended we do that.
Well, I thought we should have went to 47 the first time, but we didn't, so didn't bother me to not make that change, you know?
Okay, well, that's, I mean, we took that comment of you saying we should have to like, okay, well, let's do that.
Yeah, I thought we should have, but the first time, but now it's like, I wasn't expecting that, I guess.
Apologies if we misunderstood. I thought we were walking through on some edit revisions that we'd make, but apologies for that. That having been said, this does better mirror the comprehensive plan, and we'd be happy to make the change back, but we believe that it fits a little better. So any other questions?
Yeah, let me ask this question. It was brought to my attention this evening that, and I see a couple of county commissioners here, I think I saw two. Yeah. That the county's been working on some sort of a plan up north of Lebanon and north of 47 and so forth. And they've already approached their redevelopment commission to do something. How's that going, their plan, what they're wanting to do up that area? How's that going to affect this if we move this on up to that area?
I can't speak to that issue directly here in this meeting, but what I would suggest to you is that there is a provision in the ordinance that allows us to modify this and work with other municipalities or utilities to carve out areas if need be. And that's something that we would certainly be happy to, at the direction of the mayor and this council, to sit down and talk to the county about what their plans were. The goal is for everyone to sort of work together and to weave together different territories so that there's not overlap and there's not unserved areas. This is really just that, as, hey, this is what we're putting a stake in the ground, saying to the utility, start heading in this direction in terms of long-range planning, and this what we would see the city expanding to into the future.
Yeah, well, I explained that to them also.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
Any further questions from Jeff?
Yeah, I guess there are some folks that are nervous about, you mentioned a little bit about this, about being forced to do something. What is the advantage to the Lebanon utilities of having this regulated area?
Well, great question. And let me just first say, and let's just directly, this council and the utility board have, my recollection has, and I've represented the utility for a number of years. There are statutes that allow utilities to mandate users to connect into a system. This city has never done that. Now, that having been said, we want to encourage the use of municipal utilities. It's a health and safety issue. And so as communities densify, you want to encourage sewer use. So I don't anticipate hearing that policy change. We're talking about years and decades of growth. And so it is really just that, Mr. Kincaid. It is a direction for the utility in terms of what to plan on from a sizing standpoint, and how this council, the mayor, and the utility envision the city growing. Now, again, not a mandate, not a requirement, but for example, I believe the last time we were here, we talked a little bit about sizing a water line. And let's say that we got to the edge of the corporate limits without any plan, and the utility is trying to decide whether or not they want a 4 or 6 inch line to serve a certain area. And with a plan in place, they can say, gosh, not only should we have a 6 inch line, we perhaps need to have a lift station in the case of sanitary sewer, or a a storage tank to push water, at least plan for it, further outside the corporate limits. And so this is really an instrumentality of planning and anticipation of what we see as the city's future growth. So the advantage is we can look and plan and not have that much risk when we're talking about future sizing of infrastructure. Annexations have sort of changed in terms of what they are used for. This is a tool to help us plan rather than going out and annexing property. The utility could say, gosh, this is what we anticipate growing to the north and west, less to the south, and we can plan and size the infrastructure into the future. Very important, and the timing of this, as we know, there is quite a bit of expansion to the west of the city into the LEAP district. And what we're wanting direction is what that's going to look at in terms of what our infrastructure sizing that is installed by the utility is installed by other utilities and other users of that district. And so as IEDC or projects develop into that area, we can get some direction in terms of what that sizing would look like into the future. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but for my simplistic thinking, if we put in a certain size, say that 8-inch, and we go to a certain point, but we think maybe in 40 years we might need a 20-inch, you might say, okay, let's put the 20-inch now so that we don't have to redo it 40 years from now.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. And a
Okay.
great example of that is there was a decision made many, many years ago to run a very large sewer main to the north of town, thinking that's where growth and development would occur, wanting to encourage that in that area. Now, you can, whether that was a good thought or not remains to be seen. But what's happened is that we've grown into that infrastructure. And so you're absolutely right that will enable, in conjunction with the planning department and the comprehensive plan, give us some direction on, if you see an area remaining agricultural or primarily will be a residential area, then that will dictate what kind of sizing of infrastructure, a sewer main, for example, into that area.
Thank you.
So Jeff, the maps are different, correct?
Yes, and
Water
thank
and
you
wastewater.
for pointing that out.
The wastewater is the one that extends up to past 47, and the water stays at 450.
So no, the water extends to 47 as well, and the difference being that clipped area in these two zones, the statute does not allow us to go out beyond 4 miles. Now, we anticipate growing into that area into the future, but with wastewater, it allowed us to extend out further, and so we just cleaned up that boundary at that time.
So wastewater allows up to 10,
It allows us to 10, we did
which we're
not.
not doing.
We went out no more than 4, consistent with, slightly more than 4 to clean up those corners. And I believe with wastewater, we picked up, if you'll see, there's wastewater, the distinction being what we're doing with wastewater is picking up Center Township.
Yeah, so the northern border is the same in both.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, Sandra.
The map I have here.
Two different maps, one wastewater and one water.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah,
They're
one for
different.
each.
They're different.
One for each, slightly.
Yeah.
Slightly. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 or 3 issues here. The map I have here that was given to us for this meeting doesn't show the water going up to 47. It's like it was originally before it was stated by Dick about that. But I agree that it should stay the same where it is on this map, not up to 47 for the water. That's how it was presented to us, and I really think that we need to leave it that way if we do move forward with this. That's my opinion.
What I have
We wouldn't take a
record
vote
of-
on it.
What I have record of is showing that water extends to 47. and wastewater also extends up to 47.
This is the map I was provided today in my packet.
That doesn't appear to be the record of what we submitted, but what we intended to have it included and what we believe was tendered was up
But
to
it was
47.
changed from the last time, right?
Correct,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
modification.
I don't agree with that change.
Well, I mean, there'll be a proposed amendment on it, so.
And then the other issue is, you did say that there was no mandate for anybody to have to sign up on this or join in on this. Now,
So that's correct. So this is many, many years into the future.
but we're here now and we'll be gone.
saying you could.
Well,
Decorum, please. Decorum.
I'm going to get there. Right now, we're here and we'll be gone, like you said, many years from now, we'll be
Yeah,
gone.
so
Who's
I-
going to protect those people? I don't know that you said it wasn't in writing. You said there's no mandate, it's never been done.
So
But I would need to see something in writing that would not happen to the people.
yeah, so we have that power today within the current corporate limits of the city of Lebanon to mandate connections. So into this area, I would not want to be in a position to commit that many years out when this is a planning document. I would not want to be in a position to commit to any council that something that far out would or would not happen. What has to happen is the city has to grow and there would have to be annexations. This is truly just that. And that would be something that you could tackle during the annexation process. But in terms of, and it's been the city's, for the most part, the city's policy to not extend utilities beyond its current corporate limits. And in fact, there's some ordinances that say that they won't do that. So I don't know how to answer your question and make some sort of written commitment to you that says that would never happen when ordinances permit it and statutes permit it today.
And I would just make a point to Sandra, current councils cannot bind future councils, right? So we couldn't pass anything today that said, hey, all future councils, you can never do this, right? Because they could, we can't take actions today that bind them like that in
It
the
would be through
future.
an ordinance, wouldn't it?
To change that policy, if to change it, yes, that would have to
Right.
be a policy change.
To
that
make
we
sure
could,
that it didn't happen down the road.
but an ordinance today can be repealed by future
Right.
council,
I
right? So
get
there's
that.
no ability for us to say, lock the hands of future councils.
So
That's
who-
the issue.
Who benefits from this? How do the people benefit from this?
To answer your question is, it's a planning tool for the utility to give the utility direction in terms of sizing and where to plan its infrastructure into the future.
Do we currently provide water to anybody north of 47?
I do not, I
No. Okay.
don't
For
believe
some reason, I
so.
thought we had like
but-
one outlier.
Oh, right, we do, right?
Yeah, there's a couple houses hooked to the 24 inch main right near the water plant.
Can you come to the mic from, I'm sorry, Ryan.
Yes, so our main water plant is just north of State Road 47, near where Old Indiana Fun Park used to be. And we have a 24-inch water main that feeds 80% of our water to town. And there's a few homes on just north of State Road 47 that are on that line that voluntarily chose to be on that line, late 70s, early 80s. But everybody else that's in that area is on a home well, a residential well.
So just to address the mandatory connection issue, I don't want to suggest to you that somebody could change, have a different, if future council couldn't have a different policy. What I'm simply suggesting to you is that I'm not aware that it's been done here. And the utility board and council, utility board, but there have been discussions when we've talked about I&I infiltration into the sanitary sewer system about addressing those issues. And there's been pushback from the council and the utility board. And I don't want to speak for the utility board, but I haven't heard any favor in terms of mandating any connections. I could see a health department issue into the future where that may not be the case, but that having been said, I can just suggest to you what the philosophy has been in the councils I've dealt with in the utility board.
Jeff, I hate to put you on the spot.
No,
but, the documents that were sent to us for tonight's meeting, okay, the water territory and the wastewater territory are different. They're not the same.
that is correct.
That is correct.
That is correct, because the intention was, and I don't know if there's a confusion in the exhibits that were sent, but the intention is that the water territory and that the boundaries are all the same, except to the exclusion of this northeast corner. And that is restrictions on how far out the water territory by statute is allowed to extend. So our intention was, Mr. Robertson, was to extend to the north. I believe the exhibits that we prepared, and I'm referencing here, extend to 47, and I believe that was the intention with
The only
both.
difference is the extension of water to the north. The wastewater's there, but the water's not there on the documents that we have.
What I can tell you is that from the email that I submitted in terms of documents,
Well, we may not have the right one.
that northern boundary on wastewater,
Uh-huh.
same as the northern boundary for water. The distinction only being in this area where you can see this clipped corner. Otherwise, the intention is that they're identical.
There may have been a mistake on which version you were sent, Dick, but,
But I got the same version.
well, this is, okay, so the map we're showing, though, that's the one that we're talking about, though.
I mean, I know that's what we intended in the last meeting, that they both be the same.
Any further questions for Jeff from the council?
I think he said it really good. It's a plan, he emphasized it's a planning document so that the utilities can plan many, many years in the future to keep costs down for those that may have to work with development in the future, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
This gives us a roadmap of where the city sees growth happening, and then we will use the comprehensive plan to look at how we see that growth happening in terms of densifying and intensity of utility demands and usage.
Now, we have to submit this to IURC,
Go to the IURC.
and they have to approve it at that point.
That's correct.
But basically for, I guess, everyone, to understand a little more, the way the map is laid out, okay, it's for us to establish this area so we're not saying someone can't come in there.
With
We're just saying
working
they
with
can-
the utility and or
With
the city
ordinance, they have to
council.
come in and talk and get permission to move into that area because
Correct.
we are not able to serve that area
Correct.
at a present
Correct.
time. So
This is, yeah, and I believe that's contemplated in my discussions with the mayor and the utility board, that would be the process and plan.
Yeah.
So.
Jeff, let me ask you this question. Does this give us any, I know we're talking about planning from a utility standpoint. Does this give us any actual planning jurisdiction over this area, such as we could have building permits, we actually would approve building structures, anything like that at all?
No, we don't. This is outside the corporate limits of the city of Lebanon until that would happen, and again, going back to what this is not an annexation, and that would give planning jurisdiction, et cetera, on permits, can mandate, the ordinances would then apply. This is not that.
The questions?
Indiana code allows us to do this, correct?
Correct.
Up to 10 miles actually on the wastewater, but we're not doing 10. So, discussion from council on, so obviously there were some tweaks made that are proposed. The question would be, do we have do you want to have a motion to have public comment prior to amending the ordinance? Or would you like to amend the ordinance, then have discussion based on the amended ordinance? Because if
Content.
we don't amend the ordinance, they can only speak to the ordinance, the form it's currently in.
What's amendment?
Yeah.
To bring it back to where the line was, right?
No. Put it out where,
We are-
Oh, no.
Well, you can make a decision independently on what you want to do based
I'd
on
like
the
to.
amendment. But if we don't change the map, they can only speak to the form it's currently in. That make
So
sense?
did I get the wrong one then?
Yeah, so I think it's the wastewater map is the one that you should be looking at.
Then I'd like to make a motion to table this until the next meeting so that I can do a little more research myself. I'm not convinced to do this yet.
Motion to table, is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. The discussion was to whether we should amend. Is there a motion to accept the proposed amendment to ordinance 2024-14? We have a motion to accept the amendment. Is there a second? Motion a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, ordinance 2024-14 is currently amended. Sandra, no. So this time we'll take public comment on ordinance 2024-14 as amended. Do you have any public comment? Yeah, we can read it first. That's fine.
Thank you, Mayor Council. This ordinance on second reading is 2024-14, again, for establishing a water regulated territory for the city of Lebanon. Whereas the city of Lebanon owns and operates through its utility service board, defined as the board, a municipal water utility known as Lebanon Utilities, which again is defined as utility, for the purpose of providing safe, reliable, and efficient water utility services in and around the city pursuant to Indiana code that's defined as the Act. Indiana law permits the city to exercise powers related to water utility services granted under Indiana law in areas within 4 miles outside of its corporate boundaries. The city wishes to establish a regulated territory for the provision of regulation of water utility services that includes areas within its corporate limits and extends up to 4 miles outside of its corporate boundaries as permitted by Indiana law, excluding any customer currently being served by another water utility or within the boundaries of another municipality. That's defined as water regulated territory. On September 4, 2024, the board adopted Resolution 2024-07, recommending to this council to adopt an ordinance establishing the water regulated territory. Therefore, be it resolved, the findings and determinations set forth above are hereby made findings of this council. The city hereby consents to the establishment of a water regulated territory for the purposes of providing or regulating the provisions of water utility services within the certain areas inside and outside of the city's corporate boundaries. The water regulated territory is defined and establishes those areas within its current and future corporate limits, and generally the entirety of Center Township, including portions of Jefferson and Washington Townships, but no more than 4 miles outside of the city's corporate boundaries, as depicted on the attached Exhibit A. Upon adoption of this ordinance and approval by the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, defined as IURC, the city shall have the exclusive authority to provide or regulate water utility services in the water regulated territory. Upon adoption of this ordinance and approval by the IURC, other utilities are prohibited from providing water utility service in the water regulated territory unless such other utility requests and obtains the permission of the city. This ordinance does not mandate the city to extend service to areas where technically or financially not feasible. It does not prevent the city from authorizing another utility to provide the service in the water regulated territory. It does not prevent the use of on-site water systems where the city does not currently have facilities available. No end user shall permit a connection to water utility service in the water regulated territory provided by any other utility service unless such utility service provider has requested and obtain the permission of the city. The city shall pursue any and all necessary approvals for implementation of this ordinance. Any dispute between the city and another utility regarding the provisions of the utility service in the water regulated territory shall be submitted to the IURC. The water regulated territory may be amended by an ordinance amending the water regulated territory map attached as Exhibit A, and this ordinance shall be full force effect upon its adoption and any required approvals.
Thank you, Rob. That's the ordinance as amended. So if there's any public comment this time concerning ordinance 2024-14, which is specifically the water territory, please come forward. State your name for the record, address, and then keep comments to 3 minutes if possible.
Brian Daggy, 2005 West, 250 North Lebanon. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on this evening. I would like to encourage the council to follow what had already been suggested, and that would be to table this until there can be a little more public comment, and also to involve the county level officials in this. Given some of the issues we've seen in the last 2 years with questions of lack of transparency, lack of cooperation between some of the folks here within the county and coming from out of the county, I really had thought this council would do a better job of trying to work with both the commissioners, the Boone County APC, and to discuss where maybe there's some places to work together. I'd also suggest that given the maps are incorrect, and there's more issues than have been raised with moving things, not even the council being fully aware of it, the maps that were given to me today when I came in to get some information are now incorrect. This allows us not to really give good public comment, and I don't know how you can make a good decision based on that. In addition, the entire LEAP area, concept area, is shown as being Lebanon corporate boundaries. That's not true. Not all of that has been annexed. There are some huge holes up in the northwest and northern boundaries in there. It disturbs me that this is being shown and being used to set the boundary. In addition, the simple math I did on the eastern side shows it goes out more than 4 miles, as you've said you do. I know you show a little notch out of it, but going out to 600 is past 4 miles as I see it on a large portion of it. Given that, I would encourage you to table this, involve the other agencies and county officials in this, and have a discussion to benefit the entire county. I understand the need for planning. The county needs to be able to do planning too, particularly as they're in the process of starting their own comprehensive plan and rewrite. Thank you.
Other comment?
My name is Bud Wiry. I live at 6053 West, 200 South. And I just want to say, you guys are getting ready to vote on something when a future body could compel rural conservative. I mean, a lot of you guys I know that ran as Republicans. And then you're really going to vote on something that could further compel. I mean, this is what big government is. This is you guys using the power of big government to force things on other people. And right now, you're telling me that you guys are going to vote on something that a future body could compel people to hook to that they don't want. I live in rural Boone County. I wouldn't want this water. I don't want no part of it. Many of you guys have seen and read the stuff that's in Citizens Water and know the areas that it's sourced from. There's a lot of Hoosiers that don't want that. But you guys can vote on what you want. But you're going to tell me that you're all a bunch of Republicans and you're going to vote on something that's going to compel people. That is big government.
Comment?
Dan Legan, 6770 North Caldwell Road. As a resident of the affected area, or very close to this affected area, I see this as really a premature call to vote on something that affects a number of people who have clearly showed up to express their concern. And the idea of further reviewing it again with the county, other affected members and residents seems to be very wise to me. Take that under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment?
Good evening. My name is Keith Cutcliffe. I live at 1605 North 300 East. I am in the proposed affected area of this. I think it's actually fairly duplicitous that you guys have had this meeting here when it's going to affect the vast majority of the entire county, but failed to notify anybody to actually come over here and do their research and prepare any notes. You guys are trying to sneak this in without letting anybody know what's going on. The county commissioners were not aware of it until they were informed today because this got out. Okay, we're supposed to have a representative government. You guys are not my representatives. You guys are making decisions that will affect me, and you do not have the authority to do that. This needs to be put out to everybody out there in the rural areas that do not want your mismanagement of government, do not want your cities to come out there. I moved out to the county to stay away from places like this. You guys need to do what's right. You guys need to inform everybody who lives out there so they have a chance to look at it, come in here and express their opinions as well, and inform the county commissioners so that our representatives can actually fight for our needs and our best interests. I cannot understand why you people are doing this. This is completely duplicitous. This is not what you guys are supposed to do. You guys are not being representatives as you're supposed to be in this. You talked about earlier with the fire chief swearing somebody in to uphold the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Indiana. You are not doing that. You guys should all be fired from your jobs because you're unable to do that.
Further comment?
Hello, my name's Tim Byer. I'm one of the county commissioners. And I'm just going to echo some of the things that Dick said about the working with us on the territory. And the other, I'm not going to repeat, so I would just echo some of the things that have already been said about the confusion on the maps and so on and so forth. But I'm going to guess that I found out about this last night, by the way. I was tagged in a Facebook post late last night. I actually saw it in the middle of the night. What I would suggest to you is that this is effectively a first reading of the ordinance because people weren't aware of this. I mean, there's probably people out in the community that still aren't aware because I wasn't aware until last night. So I would strongly suggest that you table this so that effectively this would be the first reading, and then when you vote on it in a future meeting, that would be the second reading. Thank you.
Commissioner. Hey, Commissioner, I have a question for you real quick. Are there any current plans for the county to start a utility?
Well, as Dick suggested, there's a sewer district that's being considered that's been proposed to the redevelopment commission.
So so I assume that would require an expenditure of county funds to start up that utility?
It's a user. It may require some, it would be potentially, it would most likely be bond funded by potential users.
Okay. And so is there a territory you guys have in mind with that?
There's been something proposed, yes.
Have you shared that with us?
Yeah, we'd be happy to sit down and share it with you.
Okay, so I guess I'm just concerned by the double standard here, right? You're mad that we didn't notify you of this. We had our first reading of it 2 weeks ago. I mean, there wasn't a, both directions on that, right?
Yeah. So let's sit down and do it.
Sorry, I didn't hear your answer.
I said, so let's sit down and do it.
Thanks, sir. Any further comment?
Joshua Morse, I live on Caldwell Road. Listen, when I built my house on Caldwell Road 2-3 years ago, I had to let everybody on my road know that I was building a house. I had to put an ad in the paper to let somebody know I was building a house because Boone County or Lebanon said I had to. And then at the town hall meeting, anybody could come up and give an objection as to why I couldn't build a house. When I sat back here and watched how she had the wrong map and several other people have said they have the wrong map about proposed water, which I found out about secondhand information to as of like 2 hours ago. I didn't know. I was not notified. There was no ad in the newspaper. I did not get a letter from the city in any way. I'm not here to talk about whether or not you should or shouldn't put water. There's plenty of voices that'll do that already for you. But it's really scummy that nobody within the affected areas, proposed areas, were notified. Apparently nobody. Anybody? Nobody. All secondhand information. I got mine from an email who got it from somebody else. What's up with that? So like she talked about the future houses. We're talking about that it's not annexing. It could be one day, but where I live, I want my kids to grow up there. They're the future. I don't want construction. I don't want a bunch of things that are going to affect their lives without us notifying first. That's it.
Further comment? Okay. Seeing none, Jeff, you want to say anything in closing?
Yeah, just briefly, the concern, many of the concerns deal with annexation issues in terms of the city's authority. And this is just simply planning. And whether or not annexations occur out to there, the utilities wouldn't be extended without the annexations occurring. So, thank you.
Further discussions from council?
Yeah, I'm not against tabling it to communicate with the county, but for the comments of we should be fired, we'd have to annex you for you to fire us because you have to vote for us. Number one. We don't annex anybody unless they want to be annexed. So you would have to want to sell your property to get annexed. This is a planned area where we know where we can take a pipe up to. So when one of you wants to sell your land or want to get annexed till you can sell it, then that pipe is there for that person. Well, don't sell it.
Can I say
Don't
something?
sell it. No one's going to make you sell your property.
Can I say something else? Can I say something else?
Anyway, I am not opposed to tabling this issue so we can communicate with the county so there's no problem there, no overlap or whatever. And then we can come back in 2 weeks and deal with it.
So Mike, I just want to point out though, in the ordinance, it does say that we can cede and amend the territory in the future if needed. So that's a possibility if we needed to do that.
Can I
Good.
say one more thing? I do have to agree with Commissioner Byer when he said, and I hadn't thought of it that way, but there's a lot of people here tonight. I haven't seen this many people at any of our meetings, which I wish that everybody would come so I would know how you feel about things because I never know. So I go with my gut feeling. And sometimes that's wrong. I'm human. But I agree. There was nobody here when we had the last reading on this. And tonight we're hearing people. And if we did table this and could get another reading, maybe you'll get some people that's for it. I don't know. But I still think that would give everybody an opportunity to voice their opinion. We work for them. I still say we need to table it and get everybody the information they need. They weren't informed. I didn't know that.
Will all the citizens that live within the city limits of Lebanon please raise your hand?
What?
Will all the citizens that live within the city limits, corporate boundaries of Lebanon, please raise your hand?
Yeah, you're stepping over in somebody's neighborhood.
No, we're not building anything in, that's outside of the city.
Compel people to move to.
It's not what this does. It's not what this does.
So it wouldn't affect the county until someone wanted to be annexed and someone wanted to build something there. So it might be 50 years, it might not ever happen. Well, that's up to you guys. That's up to you guys to sell or whatever you want to do. I don't
Mike,
care.
let's not have
I
the
still
back
want
and
to see
forth.
this
Okay.
amended back to the original.
I'd just like to add this comment. Now,
No, we don't.
all we're doing
He
here
said there was
is
one more.
protecting an area for future expansion of Lebanon Utilities, that we have a territory that we should go in. In other words, we're saying this block is ours. In other words, so like, you gotta be quiet. Quiet a minute. Let me finish. So that way, like if Whitestown or Zionsville wanted to creep over closer to Lebanon, they have to understand that they're entering our territory, that we have jurisdiction if the IURC says we do. If they agree to our plan, that we've got this, then no one else can come in that plan without our permission. And they can, that doesn't say they can't, it just says they can't come without our permission. We're not annexing anybody. We're not forcing you on anything. And Mr. Daggy, quiet. And to Mr. Daggy's comment about the people who were not annexed, the map just shows an outline of the city. We have blocks inside the city currently that are not annexed into the city. We got what I call donut holes, which I can't stand in the city right now. So we don't match those out. It's for this map.
1,500 acres in that area that.
I don't care. The map just shows the outside area, okay? And that just shows the outside area of the current city. We know we have pockets, okay? But this doesn't affect this. All this does is says that we have jurisdiction in this area in the future expansion, if we could or not could, whatever comes along.
Final comments from council.
Do I?
Further comments from council.
Excuse me?
Further comments from council.
No.
Is there a motion?
I motion to table it again.
Motion to table. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion a second. All those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion's tabled. Next is ordinance 2024-15, concerning the wastewater regulated territory. Jeff?
If it's the council's pleasure to continue the water ordinance, I would suggest doing the same with the wastewater. We do have an ordinance in effect that extends beyond our current corporate limits that as we discussed last time. But, this was a refresh of that ordinance. But we can, that would be my suggestion. If you're going to table one, table both.
Motion to table, I agree.
Hold on. Is there a motion to amend ordinance 2024-15 to reflect the proposed, kind of what we talked about before? Motion to amend, is there a second?
Second.
Motion a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, ordinance 2024-15 is amended. Is there a motion to table?
I make a motion to table.
Motion to table, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Sierra. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that ordinance is tabled. All right, next up, so item C, we actually don't have that, so that's off our agenda. So that concludes what I have for old business. Is there anything from council? Okay, next up is item A, a new business, which is Lebanon Utilities CG Water Supply Interlocal Cooperation Agreement. Jeff?
Good evening, council. Again, my name is Jeff Jacob. I'm an attorney with Hackman Hewlett and the attorney for Lebanon Utilities. Again, on this matter, I'm also here with Ed Basquel, GM of Lebanon Utilities, and Ryan Ottinger, the Water Wastewater Operations Manager. I am pleased to address the City Council tonight on a very historic happening for the City of Lebanon. We have addressed a long-studied issue, and I'm pleased to report that at the Utility Board's last meeting, they approved a water supply agreement with Citizens Water. And before I get into the details of the water supply agreement, I'd like to talk a little bit about the history of the secondary sourcing for water for the city of Lebanon. In 2009, the city commissioned what's known as the Greeley-Hansen study, and that contemplated the potential of constructing a reservoir in Boone County or even along the corporate limits of Lebanon. And it was determined at that time that to be cost prohibitive, somewhere in 2009 dollars of somewhere between $75 to $125 million to construct the reservoir. In 2014, various Boone County communities and a couple of utilities joined forces to pool their resources and threw some money into the hat to study water on the northwest side of Indianapolis. An interlocal committee was formed, and the results of that study were that they projected the need for secondary sourcing for various areas on the northwest side of Indianapolis, anywhere between 2025 and 2035. The study, as you can imagine, as many do, recommended continued analysis of the issue every 3 to 5 years, depending upon the rate of growth in the various communities and areas. In 2016, the utility board decided to take that data and make it their own, and they commissioned the engineering firm of Butler, Fairman, and Seifert to further study and go beyond that, look at various sourcing options to bring water into the community of Lebanon. At that time, the utility board and I believe various members of the council discussed what to do with potential options to bring water in. And the impetus behind their decision was trying to look at who was going to pay for it all. And the issue then was that ratepayers would have to pay for those infrastructure improvements to bring that secondary source into Lebanon. Wherever that sourcing may have come from, there were a variety of options. And I would imagine that the impetus behind that decision was that the growth was not sufficient to commit to expanding Lebanon Utilities system to bring in that secondary sourcing at that time. A couple years later, in 2018, the utility updated its growth evaluation. It continued to look at possible wholesale providers to provide a secondary water source to the city of Lebanon. At that time, the mayor's philosophy with the utility, it remains today, is that growth pays for growth. Now, at that time, we began looking for the right project that needed the water demand, had the resources in size and scope in order to help carry the cost and the burden rather than in the existing ratepayers in order to expand a secondary source into Lebanon. And while we had a few partners that were possibilities, either projects changed direction, their water demand diminished, or they were simply delayed. Now, by way of background, Lebanon Utilities' current system has a maximum approximate capacity of 4.6 million gallons per day. And in 2018, it was estimated that in order to construct the infrastructure to supply an additional 2 MGD of capacity, bringing us to 6.6, would have cost approximately $30 million. Now, the key component with that is that would have to come out of the existing rate tariff in order to fund that expansion. In 2021, as this council is aware, the city had the opportunity to partner with Indiana Economic Development Corporation on the LEAP district. The point being in sharing this history and background is that we have long known that water is finite in this part of the city or in this part of the state, as it is everywhere. But we knew what our capacities were. We knew what the measurements were going to be, and we were simply estimating what the growth projections were going to be when the inevitable happened, when we would cap out on our capacity used and our allocatable capacity. We also knew for many years that this was an expensive fix, but we were operating under the mayor's philosophy in conjunction with the utility board and yourselves that we wanted to protect the current ratepayers from that tab, and that growth should in fact pay for growth. So I have the water supply agreement. I'd like to get into the details of it. And I'd like to first share with you a couple of just thoughts and concepts behind this, as I know you may get the question. Lebanon Utilities is still going to construct and provide water to Lebanon. And they will produce and supply the bulk of the water to what we will call their existing ratepayers. The water supply agreement, which was approved by the utility board, provides that Citizens Water will connect to Lebanon's system in 3 points, generally to the east, southeast, and south part of the city. Now, as they connect and expand their infrastructure, which is more than just pipes, they've got to expand their pressure systems, their tanks, their treatment facilities in order to push water to the city of Lebanon. At the same time, Lebanon Utilities will begin the process of expanding its system within the city in order to benefit its system in general, but to also be able to push water to the LEAP district. Now, there'll be a variety of things that our existing ratepayers and city will, in addition to having more water, there will be an additional added support and backup to Lebanon's current system and redundancy for customers. You know, if you talk to some of the engineering folks, they talk about creating loops in and around the city to provide as backup for water sourcing and distribution. And that's exactly what's happening here, is a very well thought out plan to allow for loops around the city for redundancy and consistency of supply. So talking about the logistics of the process, let's talk about how much water we're adding to Lebanon's existing supply. So by January of 2027, we will be adding up to 2 MGD or million gallons per day of water. January of 2028, we will add up to 10 MGD of water. January 2029, up to 12 MGD. August 29, up to 17.1 MGD. And finally, in January of 31, up to 25 MGD of water. Now, this agreement allows us to supplement, as mentioned, the city's water supply, improve our system, and I think, as you'll see as we get into more and more of the meat of how this deal will emerge, it will protect our current ratepayers from paying for the citizens' infrastructure to bring the water to the 3 connection points and the expansion of Lebanon utility system within the city to the LEAP district. So, as mentioned, we will be in front of you a number of times in the coming months before the end of the year. And in finalizing the water supply agreement that the utility board has approved, there'll be a number of items that we're going to be back in front of you with this year. One of which will be the creation of a LEAP rate district. And that's how we propose to protect our current ratepayers from those infrastructure costs for expansion of the citizen system to get to our territory and then throughout the city over to the LEAP district. I would pose to you that at the same time, the existing ratepayer will reap the benefit of that added infrastructure, redundancy of the system, and added water supply. So I understand that there have been some concerns about the timing of when and part of the reason I wanted to talk about the history of how we got to where we are. This is not a new issue. Everyone has known that the water supply coming into Lebanon was limited. It was simply a matter of time, and matching what I would submit to you has been unprecedented growth within the city. Now, so while we have allocated the capacity that we have to allocate at this point, I would submit to you that this deal, the water supply agreement, will be of such benefit to our current ratepayers in the city and the expansion of the LEAP district that it will certainly prove to be worth the wait. So what I wanted to do was update you. I know that this has been a long time coming. I know we had one of these before that we thought was imminent. But I wanted to share with you and commend you as in your leadership as well as the utility board to a lot of hours, especially the mayor, in helping put this together, because I think this is a significant and historic step that the council is taking, utility board, as well as the city in general. I'm happy to answer any questions, but wanted to supply you with that update as I know you've been waiting on.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. And I do want to clarify, there's no action tonight on this. We're not required to approve what the utility board already agreed to. There's no need to. But again, I wanted Jeff to come, and obviously we've been involved with this and wanted to give you guys an update of the status of that and kind of going forward. You mentioned we're coming back several times. If you kind of lay out maybe just not going to hold you to dates, but like kind of high level,
sure.
Like what's coming back before us. So we would be voting on.
Yeah, so great point. So we will be coming back with a bond ordinance that Baker Tilly, my office, and Mr. Shine's office is working on that it contemplates financing of the Lebanon utility portion of the infrastructure improvement. And that's from the connection point, in other words, this side of the meter, to the LEAP district. We are not responsible for the construction, generally speaking, of the infrastructure, the service lines, and laterals and the like within the LEAP district. That's going to be on the users, IEDC. What I can tell you, it's not on us. So there'll be some financing pieces. You guys have been through the bond ordinance process. It is a very unique bond ordinance. It is being backed by IEDC and IFA. There'll be some funds and carrying costs deposited in a trust. So there may be a trust agreement that you will see that pairs with that bond ordinance. And so the issue is that there are no customers to speak of with the exclusion of Eli Lilly to fund the bond ordinance with current rates and charges. And so an SRF loan typically has that mechanism. And so the reason that we've been able to take this step and to protect the current ratepayers is with the state's backing and IFA funding the carrying costs in part of the bond. And so that is one piece that you will see with water. You'll see that first. You'll see a number of those ordinances that we anticipate trying to close on by the end of the year. You'll also see a rate ordinance that we just discussed, and Baker Tilly is working on the nuts and bolts of that, but that will create an additional rate district beyond our current district. So we will create a whole new set of rates and charges that apply to the LEAP district, define that area, and we will have a new set of rates and charges which include the capital rate for the construction of the infrastructure getting to our boundaries and through the city.
So any questions for Jeff concerning the update on the water supply agreement?
No, sir.
Okay. Jeff, appreciate all the hard work on it. That's a huge thing for us. So. All right, next item will be Resolution 2024-20, authorizing purchase of a ladder truck. Chief Batts.
Good evening, everyone. What you have before you is the contract and resolution for the purchase of a new ladder truck. The contract is through Fire Services Incorporated. The leasing contract is with Rev. We were currently speccing out a ladder truck. It had a 2-year lead time and a price tag of approximately $2.3 million. Fire Services Incorporated contacted us and let us know that there is a truck in production now that a city had contracted with them for the truck. The city or town backed out of the contract. It's very similar to what we were looking at, and it comes to us at a savings. This truck is at $1.9 million. It will be ready next year. This will not be a budget item until 2026. So it moves our timeline up 1 year. Currently, we have 10-year leases and we have 10-year terms on our fire truck apparatus. We may need to restructure that sometime in the future because of usage. They're just wearing out sooner than that, and that's what we're seeing with Ladder 213. So essentially, the 5-year plan that we discussed back in June with the purchase of this truck, it moves it up 1 year, but it also comes with a savings to the city.
And just clarify too, there's no payment in 2025.
No,
So
this
wait till
is not a
2026.
budgeted item for 2025. We'll actually receive the truck next year, but this will be a a line that goes into lit for our leased fire trucks for 2026.
So normally we wouldn't have this resolution, but because there's no budget line for it, that's why we have to have this resolution to indicate to the finance company that, hey, we will in 2026 have it in the budget essentially. So it's just kind of us committing and essentially saying we've agreed to do this, not binding us, but of course committing, saying we would do it. So any questions on that from the council?
No, sir.
Okay, Rob, read the resolution, please.
Thank you, Mayor Council. Resolution 2024-20 is a resolution approving the purchase of a ladder truck. Pursuant to the city's Uniform Development Ordinance, the Lebanon Board of Works and Public Safety, the board, is designated the purchasing agent for the city. Indiana law authorizes this council on behalf of the city to purchase goods and services without soliciting bids or proposal where there exists a unique opportunity to obtain supplies and or services at a substantial savings to the city. City of Lebanon Fire Department desires to purchase one new E1 custom-built 100-foot platform ladder truck for use in emergency firefighting scenarios. The fire department has been previously given a price that totaled in excess of approximately $2.3 million for the purchase and or leasing of the truck. The fire department was contacted, as the chief said, about a unique opportunity to purchase a similar ladder truck due to another municipality canceling its order. The city has been given the opportunity to buy the truck from Fire Services, Inc. in the amount of $1,960,000 if it entered into this contract within 30 days from being notified of the opportunity. The purchase of the fire truck from Fire Service, Inc. constitutes an approximate savings of $400,000. In order to take advantage of the savings and in an effort to amortize the truck's cost over a greater period of time, Rev Financial Services has agreed to enter into a lease purchase agreement. The council believes that purchasing the truck from Fire Service, Inc. constitutes compliance with all applicable purchasing requirements and is a unique opportunity to obtain supplies and services at substantial savings to the city. Therefore, be it resolved that this council finds the foregoing recitals are incorporated by reference. This council has reviewed the materials and information presented and recommends that the board enter into the fire services contract and the Rev contract. Upon execution of this resolution, the council hereby directs the board to proceed with the fire services contract and the Rev contract pursuant to Indiana law.
Thank you, Rob. Any further questions, comments from council? Any public comment concerning resolution 2024-20? Okay. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve resolution 2024-20.
Motion
I'll
to approve and a second from Sandra. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is approved. All right, that concludes what I have for new business. Is there anything from council?
No, sir.
Mayor?
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the two ordinances we were talking about, and I would like to see if we can get the utilities and since they brought the ordinance to us, if we could get with them to get together with the county commissioners and discuss what they have planned, what they have on paper and so forth, their options, and see if that's something that fits in what we're talking about or something, and then come back to us at our next meeting. So we don't wait forever to get something done. Let's just move. And if they got something that looks good and for them can work and we agree that we could carve it out, let's have it brought back to us in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
So we can make a decision.
Sounds good.
Do that?
Council so directing, I'll be happy to reach out to the county attorney or Commissioner Byer if he believes appropriate, and I'll be happy to address that issue.
Because otherwise we'll be sitting and waiting forever. We don't need to do that.
Understood, and I will. We have a few other items on the burner as well, but we will work diligently to get that done. Thank you for your comment.
Any other new business from council? Okay, we'll move on to claims. Anything else concerning the claims? Motion to pay the claims. Is there a second? Second from Rob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Any announcements or discussion?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion adjourned. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from John. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Our next city council meeting will be October 15th at 7:15 PM. We are adjourned.